Welcome to Absolute Comics. I'm Sal. I'm joined today by Dan. Benny ain't here, and so the dad's gone. We're gonna play. We're just gonna talk about comics and comic movie news and rumors and stuff. We're just gonna have ourselves a great old time. So if you want to check us out, of course, make sure to do so here at either twitch.tv/comicstorian or on youtube.com/Absolutely Marvel and DC. Check us out at either place or on Spotify, where you can give us a nice rating. I think on Apple Podcasts. I think that's the only place you can actually give a rating. I don't really know. But, hey, you're looking for some swag? You should check out Into the EA and get some really comfortable shirts that I'm not wearing right now. Or drink out of a gamer sup. All the information for our sponsors are in the comments and the description down below. So check that out if you are interested. Use comics at checkout, for one of them at least. Save yourself some money. God knows how much, but tell me. I'll tell you this. It's going to be an amount. Let's do it.
That's the best intro I have ever heard.
You're too kind. Thank you, sir. Let's take a look at our list of topics for today. Boom! I guess we could talk about what we're reading. Is there anything that came out today? It's Tuesday, so it's only DC Day, which is always frustrating. But listen, are there any books that came out this week that you're like, oh man, we can't continue the show until I talk about this book that just came out?
I mean, honestly, nothing came out that like caught my eye that I'm desperate to talk about, excluding the Batman 900 135, I believe is the current number, 900 Legacy that we will be talking about. Besides that, nothing else really truly caught my eye. How about you?
No. Batman, and I forgot to check out the John Kent Superman book. I want to see more of the Injustice stuff. I want to see Superman and John. They just met up in the last issue, so I want to see where that goes. And I just didn't read it. I was just doing other things today. But I did read Batman. That was like the first thing I did today. And I read Shazam, which is cool. So, yeah. But I guess we could talk about some new books. We could talk about the end of Sins of Sinister. While I should be wary, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not checked out the Sins of Sinister X-Men Extravaganza, an 11-part miniseries that encompassed a number of titles, including Immortal X-Men, which became Moral X-Men, and Nightcrawlers and other books like that. It's a fantastic book. If you claim to love Mr. Sinister, this is the event for you. And it was more of a saga, but shorter than X of Swords. So I don't know what you're complaining about. It's great. It was really cool. It was really interesting. If you like Age of Apocalypse and you complain about Ten of Swords, you should be reading this. It's now done, and it was dope AF. I mean, Dan, what did you think of the conclusion of Sins of Sinister?
So the conclusion, I enjoyed it. I liked the twist with the Quiet Council 4 at the end that I was not expecting that. That was... I thought that was good. I thought that was a good change to really alter the status quo for the future moving forward. The event itself, I enjoyed the event. I thought it was a neat idea. My biggest problem was I despise the 10 years in the future, 100 years in the future, 1,000 years in the future.
Yeah.
Because every time something like that happens, I'm aware of that from the start, I don't care as much for the 10 years in the future and the 100 years, because I'm like, nothing that you're going to do is going to have any impact right now, because I already know that this is going to last at least 1,000 years. So anything that might have suspense or anything like that happens prior to that 1,000-year mark, like I don't care that much. Like there was a couple with, I want to say it was at like the 100-year mark with Storm.
Yes.
Like we had that, like, okay, that was something that actually had somewhat meaning at that time period. But I feel like the laying it out in the order of just jumping here and then all the way here, then all the way back. I feel like it would have been more impactful if it had gone, here's the 10 years in the future and cliffhanger. Now it's at 100. Like, like, wait, how did we get to that? Okay. They've got to finish it here. Oh, now we're at that. Like if they led up to it, I feel like I would have been more into it. But when it was all over the place, it just kind of, it made it difficult because I was struggling to keep up with the time period that they were in, the 1 out of 4 Sinister that this individual was a part of, and the chaos in which was involved in the mashing up of X-Men.
Yes. Oh yeah, well that was, and it's been teased since Hawks and Pox, the idea of like the chimeras and seeing these merging of powers. That for me is the thing that I'm not terribly interested in. People were like, "Oh my god, can you imagine it's Nightcrawler with Wolverine claws?" And I'm like, "So?" I don't know why. I think amalgams are kind of weird and not like, it's not the most exciting idea to me, despite the fact that, like, you know, Marvel and DC did their amalgam thing and I champion that. I don't even really find those interesting myself. I just wish they existed and I want them to continue. I want them to try those things. But as far as like merging characters, I'm like, yeah, whatever. That's the thing that's least interesting to me. Though I do like when it's done to successful effect, like Rasputin 4, who's just an interesting enough character to continue to see.
I will 100% agree with that, because Rasputin 4, love the design, the powers, like everything behind that. What made that character good was that they made it a character. Everything else, they weren't making characters. They were just like, hey, look, what if we mix these two? What if we mix these two? What if we mix these 17? They were just there for the sake of mashing people up and going, they've got powers. They've got powers that you don't know about. But Rasputin 4, cool design, had a use, like was there, had a purpose. And I think that's what made that character really fun. And I'm kind of glad that it's in the main line, because now we've got Rasputin 4, who's from the way future. We've got old woman Laura, who's from the vault future. And we've got current day Laura. Because let's be honest, if we were compare Rasputin 4 to any of the characters, I would say it's closest to Laura Kinney with other people's powers, as opposed to like magic with other people's powers and stuff.
Right. Yeah, I wonder, it's funny, it makes me think, like, where's Blink? Because I would love to see a kind of, there was a book that came out a long time ago called Exiles, which was like, take a bunch of characters from displaced realities, alternate dystopian futures, and make them on a team, and just do Sliders. It was just Sliders, the show, but in X-Men. And I would love to see an X-Men on Krakoa group, or at least, like, you know, people getting together, maybe some kind of like support team that's like, I'm from a displaced reality too. Like all these different characters that are all from different, like, alternate dystopian futures.
Like a support group for misplaced mutants.
Right? Like, like Bishop runs it, and it's just everybody being like, yeah, so my future doesn't exist? Yeah, mine too. Okay. What's your, what happened to Captain America in your reality? You know, that I think that'd be kind of fun to see that, like, that camaraderie, because it's rarely played up. It's part of the reason why I think David Pepos' Savage Vengers is so beloved right now. Is that dude, he picks up whatever anybody else put down and just goes for it. He's like, I'm going to pay off a bunch of crap you couldn't possibly imagine. We're going to play with, we're going to play with Flash Toms. We're going to play with Deathlocks. We're going to play with Cloak and Dagger. Like, he the last arc was just all of this stuff. Every issue had so much going on, and it felt like such, like, compression in the best way. It felt like a classic Marvel comic. And dude is from the time that I would remember. So, like, I'm like, you know what you're doing. And it's so rare to see that nowadays. People being like, hey, just do the thing. Like, it seems like people are so reticent to do the thing that people are like, oh man. You know, like, if you were to see like Firestar and Iceman and Spider-Man, it's like, put them all together, you know? And occasionally that'll happen, but I'm kind of like, just give the people what they want. Like, put them on the bridge of the Enterprise. Do a thing where they all are there in one place and do the thing. I don't know. It feels like some people are like, no, that's too easy. People, you don't give the audience exactly what they want. You got to give them a little twist.
Right.
And I'm like, I appreciate that, but only if it's exciting and interesting, but not if it's just like arbitrarily done because, well, I shouldn't just give the audience what they're asking for.
Right.
Yeah. But that said, since Sinister, I think Sinister got his just desserts. I think the council has been asking for some kind of punishment for a long time, just by virtue of being weird and creepy. And I mean, the fall of X couldn't possibly happen without what happened at the end of Sinister. So here we go. We're sprinting headlong into the Fox of it all. So
I really liked how they concluded it to, like you said, the fall of X. Like, we have removed the biggest players from the game that were controlling things. We've already removed some key players because I believe Magneto died
Yeah, he's dead.
Like, he's dead. He removed himself from the Resurrection Protocol. Resurrection Protocol's being abolished pretty much because we're missing some of the people for it.
Yeah.
I love the fact... I will say, I loved that when Rasputin 4 comes from the future and Kitty's there, like, covered in blood, she's like, okay, so what happened in this future? Like, what's the... Like, give me the rundown real quick.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really excited to see where they move forward with this because I feel like it's the first real change to Krakoa. Like, I feel like the Axe event had the potential to really move things forward. Right. And it kind of did, but it really only just slightly altered it so that Sins of Sinister could happen.
Right. Yes.
And outside of that, it was just kind of like, nothing really is impactful. But the people that we have taken off the board, everything that's happened, the fact that we've got Mother Righteous in the role of
just
like
around,
Mr. Sinister with magic, like I dig that. I like having these alternate things arriving, a new direction, a new era for X-Men, because Krakoa was great. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it. It's had its time. Let's move on to something new. Here's hoping that we get something good out of this.
That's the real big hope. Like I am always down for change, especially in comics, but only if that change comes from a genuine place of creativity and not just a place of we've been here too long, let's upend it. Like I like Krakoa. And I like this idea now. I've always found it creepy and weird, but like I also find it to be a great place of fertile ground for creators to really try something. It also removes a lot of like tension that makes it difficult to be an X-Men fan that I do appreciate not having right now. And as a result, I'm like, you know, just stay here. You can play in the sandbox as long as no one's peed in it. Like, so I don't think that there's anything inherently broken with Krakoa to the point where we need to leave. You know, when they said Fall of X is coming, I'm like, I hope you have a plan. You know, and I know people who are like, you know, they better not get into the mansion. You know, we better not go back to the mansion right now or ever. And I'm like, look, I love the mansion. And I'm very okay with the mansion as long as it's coming from a genuine place of interest and creativity, where the mansion is the result of hard work and good storytelling, where at the end it feels satisfying that we're at the mansion, you know? Yeah. I feel like it would have been interesting if they had done anything with the mansion. It's weird, it's suspicious that nothing was done with the mansion outside of like one giant-sized, overpriced X-Men issue that starred Nightcrawler, and it was like more or less left to the elements. It's very much just kind of like no one's in the mansion. And I'm like, man, instead of living in a stupid head of a Celestial, wouldn't it have been cool if the Avengers moved into the X-Mansion? Like, just do something interesting. The Fantastic Four move into the X-Mansion. And, you know, what's his name? Reed Richards is like, I made a couple of modifications to this thing. Like, oh, the Danger Room. You know, we don't train enough. Let's try it. You know, just something.
I think the only thing that I can think of they did with the mansion was and I could be wrong on this, but I feel like in the Wolverine comic, they were going after like the head that was like the head of the Danger Room. And that was like living in the mansion, and Wolverine and Deadpool did so. Like, that's the only thing I think we've seen of the mansion outside since Krakoa started. So
yes.
Who knows what's going to happen with that, because I'm pretty sure the mansion's still in New York and there's a murderous robot in it.
No, it's true. They're going to have to deal with that. And wouldn't it be cool to see that being utilized in some exciting and interesting way, and not just in a, you know, only Wolverine's going to run it, or we're going to split the X-Men again, and, you know, Magneto's going to go to an asteroid like he always does. Like, no, I like them all being on the same page. Even though they never were. It's funny, like, you know, we get that beautiful moment in Hawks where, like, Apocalypse shows up and he's like, we're brothers now, we're doing this. And it's like, you were never brothers. None of you all worked together. You constantly had Mystique being like, you know, it was Mr. Sinister was always doing this. What's happening in Sins of Sinister? What happened now that it's over? You know, it's just, you were never united. It never worked out for you. What's wrong with you? So, yeah, man, I don't know. It's just, but it's cool. Speaking of cool, Batman 900 just dropped. Chip Zdarsky has been cautioning against the spoilers for this issue. I know that he's been complaining about it for at least the past week, and rightfully so. He wrote the book. There's a lot of cool things. It's a seminal issue, and it's not as big as 1000, but big enough to put a button on the end of the kind of fallout from the failsafe arc.
Yeah.
And so here we are. And by the way, it's legacy numbering. It's 135, but they're saying, oh, it's 900. So that's cool. We see the Batman go through the multiverse, fighting what is this, effectively some kind of like insane multiversal Joker. And I don't want to spoil it really, but if you want, like, we can talk a little bit about the implications thereof, if there are any, because I don't know if there's the thing that really like stuck with me about this issue, besides the fact that it's like you got to see a lot of fun Easter eggs, a lot of fun references and cameos, but I don't know, I felt like it wasn't it didn't have the oomph I was going for.
Okay. I really liked, and I will probably accidentally say something spoilery, so I'm just going to preface it with
That's what the show is, folks, so buckle in.
I really like that, and they say this in the comic, we've always talked about how the villains exist because Batman put on the cowl, and I loved that in this he really hammers home, no, they would exist regardless of if Batman had the cowl on or not.
That I do
They
like.
exist, but then I also just really, really liked the fact that they had Halliday he was the reason that the Jokers existed, was because he was trying to become a Joker, but in doing so entered other Jokers' brains, broke them essentially, turned them into Jokers, and he's just constantly like, no, I am supposed to be the one breaking right now. What is going on?
That was there's a lot of like cool stuff in this, but the implications are either superficial or they could be really cool. Like, is Halliday responsible for the Jeff Johns 3 Jokers? I don't know. I don't feel like he is, because the other 2 Jokers from 3 Jokers did not have the same origin as the Joker from from The Killing Joke.
Right.
But there are 3 Jokers, and that's how Zdarsky opened his arc, was with 3 Jokers. It was a dream, but it was still referencing 3 Jokers. So I'm like, is that what you're doing? Also, I don't remember Halliday being Joker's name. And in fact, if we're going to reference Johns' 3 Jokers, Johns has a name for the Joker, and it ain't Halliday.
Mm-hmm. I believe it was a new one that they put in for this, because even at one point they referenced Jack Napier as well.
Yeah, they do.
You're
like right.
Another Joker name. So I think
Halliday is just one of the names. It's the name of of the Red Hood, or the red masked Joker.
Mm-hmm. I think it was literally just, I think he had to give him that name so that you could throw people off the trail until he made that revelation, or like revealing it to everyone. Because if they had just been like, oh, it's Jack White or it's Jack Napier, it's like, we know who it is. Like, there's no there's no secrecy mystery or mystery behind this. But when it was Halliday, and it was like, for a while you started going, who is this? Is this someone trying to be the Joker, or is this the Joker? Like, because I mean, even at the end, you could even say that it wasn't the Joker. Right. It was the maker of the Joker.
Yeah. There's the idea of the Joker maker was also fine. It was interesting enough where I'm like, okay, that's an idea that I'm not totally against. But it seemed to have, it was in love with its own idea more than I was, and that was where I was like, oh, okay, well, cool, I guess. I think it was an exciting and satisfying book, but I was also like, I don't know, that's what we're building towards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is that enough? The images are there, and the visuals are there, and there's a lot of superficiality in the book that like works. It's just kind of very much, it is pure and utter and absolute fan service. But there was one moment where I'm like, yes! And I don't know if I was like, oh, okay. Like when I got it, it was one of those things where you're like, oh my god, I love mac and cheese, thank you, and then you have it and you're like, oh, this isn't what I was expecting. Like this is
Right.
This is not the same. I had an idea about what this was going to be in my head, and it's not that. That's what this was. Where there were a couple of moments where I think we've all expected things that we saw in this issue to happen, but when they ultimately were given to us, they were not as exciting. It was actually less exciting than I thought it was going to be when I speculated about it as a nerd.
Right.
But otherwise, I mean, but that's very much splitting hairs. It's very, there is no insult meant, nor am I trying to say that the book sucks. I think it's actually really cool. I think it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed what I read, but I was surprised when I looked back on it. I was like, oh yeah, nothing really like hung there. There are so many issues, and there's so many books today that are being published where I will think about what I just read, and it'll just stay with me. And I was really looking forward to this, especially because Chip was so insistent on not getting spoilers, where I'm like, okay. And maybe it's because the people who are working on this book along with him were also equally excited, and everybody was like, yeah, this is going to be freaking awesome. And I mean, I think it delivers. It's just it wasn't as big a delivery as I was hoping for. But again, no complaints. It was just, oh, okay. Like, that's good too. That's good too.
I really liked, like, outside of the Batman stuff and the fact that Batman now has a robot hand, which who knows what that's going to lead into. But I really appreciated what Chip Zdarsky did with Tim Drake as the Robin. Like, I thought it worked so well because I've always seen Tim Drake as like a partner to Batman, but more of on equal footing than a Batman and Robin style relationship. And I felt like this was much more of a Batman and Robin father and son kind of thing. And I really liked that moment when he's diving through the multiverse and he goes to his mother.
Yes, that was a great moment.
All
the Tim Drake stuff is pure, unadulterated
fantastic.
Works. It works. One page destroys the entire Tim Drake miniseries that we got. Like,
oh yeah,
it was great, and I completely agree with you. That was such a fun time, and how it all pays off in this issue was awesome. Like, no, I am 100% in agreement with you on that one. Like, Tim is. It's one of those moments where you're like, this is why Tim is Robin. This is why Tim is the best Robin. Yeah. So.
This I feel like was long overdue for Tim to get his big Robin moment.
Yes.
And I feel like he has not really had that
in a while.
I can't even think of like the last time that I would go, oh yeah, Tim Drake Robin, like this was his moment. Actually, I would say the last time that was most impactful was the Detective Comics series in Rebirth before he died in the clock tower.
The Tynan run, yes.
Died, yeah. This is like the best that I have seen for Tim since then. And I'm so thankful that Chip Zdarsky used Tim Drake as his Robin in this because it just fit in so many ways. And yeah, overall, guys, definitely go check this one out. It was very, very worth it.
Yep. It may be difficult to get because I think it'll be a popular book, but check it out. It's worth checking out. It's worth the experience. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving forward into into other comic book stuff, you have a great article here from CBR about Monica Rambeau, Photon number 5. That's right, Monica Rambeau has a book. You probably aren't reading it, but you should, because Monica Rambeau is a cool character. Photon, the original Captain Marvel, female Captain Marvel, that is. But she may be the most powerful cosmic hero in the Marvel universe, and has been apparently mentally holding herself back this whole time. And after an interaction with Star Fox the Eternal, she has unleashed her full potential. Dan, did you get a chance to actually look at this? Because I heard about this only through you, so I was like, oh, cool.
I've only seen some of the images for it because, like you said, I saw when the first issue came out because it was around the time of them announcing the Marvels, obviously.
Yes.
Which, when I saw this, I was not surprised. a movie's coming out. Of course, you're going to make one of the stars for the movie that is not as well known a lot more powerful, so people are more interested, because
Absolutely.
people like overpowered things.
They
But
sure
I do really like, because I did read some of it, and I like that the way that they lay it out is that Monica has always kind of held herself back so that other people can take the spotlight and shine, and she kind of overthinks things and like has held herself back. And then in this, with the help of the Beyonder and Star Fox,
Yep.
she breaks that mental barrier essentially and becomes the most powerful cosmic hero. And I really like it because Captain Marvel,
Yeah.
she's lost it. Ever since Civil War II, I don't
You're talking about
think
Carol
she is-
Danvers?
Carol Danvers, yes.
Yes.
Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. Ever since Civil War II, I don't think she has ever fully recovered as a character. To the fans in the comics, yeah, they redeem her somewhat, but then other times you're like, wow, she just joked about putting Tony in a coma again. That's
Yeah.
like poor taste there. But I
She
feel
has
like
been, she has not been given a good shake in a long time. It's
exactly.
been tough.
And I think that this will be good because they can put Monica Rambeau in that position, let Captain Marvel hang out in the back, kind of cool off, let people get refreshed, and then bring her back in later. But I think this is going to be good. I hope that they do more with it, and not one of those things where the movie comes out and then like 2 years later they're like, we finally doing something, and it's like, lost the timing on that, guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's going to be tough because of the writer's strike, and well, the movie's out. Like, the movie's done. That movie's done. So they don't have to worry about like rewrites and shooting and stuff like that, unless they want to shoot an extra like post-credit scenes, in which case they're going to have to like rely on improv. But yeah, I think that when it comes to Monica's always been more interesting than Carol, for me anyway. And I fear that Carol results, there's one issue that I have with people's problem with Carol Danvers, and it's that people are blaming her for things that like people made her do because she's a fake person. Like people are like, well, you can't trust her because of what she did in Civil War. And I'm like, well, the Civil War 2 sucks, and they made her do that because they needed a heavy in that book.
Right.
It has nothing to do with her as a person, or because she isn't a real person. And she's meant to be a hero, so at the very least, you're supposed to take what she's saying and how she feels at face value. But the problem is, you can't go, hey, I just realized we don't have a Wonder Woman here, and you can't just arbitrarily pick a character and go, we have chosen to elevate this character. This isn't Cats. We're going to have a Jericho ceremony to ascend one of these characters to stardom here. The culture picks who is elevated. And if you ask everybody, like, who's the Wonder Woman of Marvel, first of all, you get a variety of answers. Yeah. I would say She-Hulk, but a lot of folks would have said people like Storm, and no one's wrong. I think very few people would have said Carol Danvers, and not because she sucks, but because like it's tough. Like it's a tough call, and she's any woman you choose from Marvel is going to be at least interesting and completely different from Wonder Woman, because they are so deeply flawed because intrinsically they're a Marvel character. She never got a fair shake because I don't think anyone ever legitimately wanted to elevate her for any genuine reason outside of like, we have to have a character. And arbitrarily it also can't be a mutant or a Fantastic Four member. Right. And it's like, that's very limiting when you think about it, because it ain't going to be Medusa, but if you wanted to arbitrarily pick one, I mean, Monica would have been a lot more of a I think a fan favorite choice because of her history, her experience with different teams, the fact that she has a fairly unblemished history at Marvel that doesn't have like one of the part of Carol's unfortunate history is that she's also associated with some of the worst comics imaginable, like Avengers 200, where it's like, yeah, so she's gonna like be forced to fall in love with a man and then sleep with him or not. Actually, look, long story short, she's gonna give birth to her own assaulter. Like, it's already a complicated mixed bag. Now, that could be a triumphant, interesting story if you, like, in terms of making her elevated, in terms of, like, giving Carol that oomph.
Right.
But you have to, like, own it and go for it. Like, this is a champion who has triumphed over tragedy, adversity, and, like, and darkness. But they didn't want to do that. They were just like, call her captain and give her a new suit. I'm like, oh, that's not very exciting, is it? I mean, And Monica, I like her because she was in a little book called Next Wave, which was very fun and not what Marvel, I think, would be interested in promoting right now, despite like its potential. But in addition to her history as Captain Marvel, I've known Monica being Captain Marvel longer than Carol. She's the one who actually went with that name for the longest time. Oh, just she's not very interested. Like, I don't care. It'd be like if they said, "Hey, we're gonna make Spider-Man more powerful than he's ever been." I'd be like, "All right, well, how long are you gonna do that for until you stop? Because I don't want to read that."
Right.
Like, that's saying that someone is like more powerful is just so boring and uninteresting to me. I'm so not interested in hearing about that. Like, oh, they're more powerful. They're even more. You know how powerful you thought they were? Well, they're actually 10 times more powerful. Yawn. What does that have to do with anything? Like, and based on what metric? And at the end of the day, that will be subject to the writer's whimsy. So, you could say that all you want, but like, she's not going to be able to. If she's in a like an X-Men book and Kitty Pryde needs to win, she's going to find a way to beat the most powerful new Marvel character. It's just arbitrary to me. But
Yeah, I think I feel like that's the making her more powerful thing. I think that's something that is more directed towards readers like myself as opposed to you, because you have you've had her around a longer time than I have. I never knew her as Captain Marvel. The only times I've seen her have been when she's like jumps in with different other teams. The one that I can think of just off the top of my head was the Thunderbolts after Luke Cage becomes mayor, and she's kind of like the liaison kind of leader, but not actually. But I've known her to be Captain Marvel, but from my reading experience, Carol Danvers has always been the more powerful one, and she has been Photon and a lot more of a side character. And so like this kind of power boost to someone like myself, I go, so she's a legitimate character now. She's not a plot device to help this team or like has to be involved with these. Like, no, she could be her own standalone, she could be the next Captain Marvel again. And like, I feel like for someone like myself, seeing this and why I put it on the thing was because I was like, this opens a lot of doors. I never even considered her in these different avenues because I didn't read them back then. So
that's fair.
And like, I think it's an interesting take on that long-term reader versus a relatively speaking newer reader.
Right.
So I'm excited to see what happens out of this because, like you said, not as many blemishes on her history. Carol, I feel like it was writers making her do things. I think the biggest problem was they never redeemed her. And they always, they not
or
only
they thought
did
they did. Like they were really bad. They were really bad at it. Like they would go, no, she was redeemed in this book that no one read, or in this story that makes her actually less redeemable than before.
Exactly.
That's not, or they cop the other attitude of, why does she need to be redeemed? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Maybe there's something wrong with you.
It's the hammer home for me of, okay, I'm not a fan, was when she did make the joke of, I will put you in a coma again.
Yeah.
And it was not really a joke. It was more of her being like, no, I will. And it kind of was like nope. Like, if anything, there was no, as far as I am aware, there was
Yeah.
at no point a time where Carol apologized to Tony
for what happened in
she
Civil War
did
2.
in Civil War 2. And I feel like the first comic that came out afterwards was her dealing with alcoholism and using Tony as support and still never referenced it. And it was, so for me, that's one of those things that my opinion of Carol has gone just decline. So
Yeah.
having Monica Rambeau powered up as Photon, potentially, she probably won't get Captain Marvel the name again, but
No.
having her back as kind of that role, though, of the powerful cosmic based hero, I'm
Yeah.
excited. I think there's a lot of good potential to come out of that. So
I think you're right. There's an option. There's an opportunity here to elevate Monica, especially because this movie will be the biggest push for this character she's ever seen. And it's like, I am so sick of Marvel not capitalizing on these opportunities to the fullest extent. Now, I've also decried Marvel for trying to do it in more flagrant and pathetic ways. Like, there's a movie called Infinity War. Jerry, make a book called Infinity Wars. It's gonna be real bad, just really boring. Just make it happen. It's the biggest thing. Put the Infinity Rocks in it. Okay, just make them different. I don't know, whatever. Like, it's just, that's how it feels, and it's like, you know, or when that poor Falcon Winter Soldier book came out because there was a show, and then the show got delayed, so the book came out, and it was like, for whom? And that's a problem. You know, but, you know, for God's sake, don't do nothing. Don't sit on your hands. Like, get this out there. Monica's going to be on screen. There better be some Monica books on the shelf. And, yeah, there's an opportunity here. And if she needs to be juiced up power-wise to make that happen, whatever. Okay.
Right.
If that's what gets your attention, folks. But also, you know, follow her home and, you know, have her do things as a human being, because that would be very interesting to a lot of people, I think, and it would provide a new perspective.
Yeah,
that's totally worth it. So good for her, yay! Why don't you take the next one?
I have a feeling I know why you have handed that over to me. So, actor Chukwudi Iwuji, I believe, who plays the High Evolutionary in the upcoming Guardians of the Galaxy 3 movie, was talking about how on the set, for a lot of the scenes, he worked with on-set humans. And if you guys weren't aware, the movie is going to be based heavily on like Rocket Raccoon's origin, the High Evolutionary, what the High Evolutionary did to him, as well as other creatures and stuff like that. Essentially, the article was saying that the actor, when seeing the footage from the actual movie, said to himself, I think I am going to hell, because of watching like what he did to Rocket and to the animals, that it kind of added a layer to it of, people are going to go in this, and I'm going to warn viewers now, there will be scenes of animal cruelty that I'm sure a lot of people are not going to handle well, which is a interesting thing, because I am sure we've seen worse things happen to people, but for some reason, as people, as humans, when it happens to animals, there's something about it that just gets at us. But yeah, basically he came out saying that he was very thankful that on the set he was able to work with people, and was not happy when he saw what he was actually doing.
I mean, that's what the High Evolutionary does, man. He mucks around with animals. I'm just thankful that there were no animals on the set. You know, that the animal use was all kind of made in post. But I like that. I like that, first of all, that they're, you know, human being who feels, you know, really sad about that use. I would hope that there's like some kind of a environmental message as a result of it. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that if it makes people squeamish and upset, good. Like, it should. I hope it changes some people's opinions and feelings, and it makes people more sensitive to the plight of animal cruelty. That'd be great if that were the case, especially since it was fake, especially since it's like we didn't even it's not like we did it at the expense of hurting animals. Like we didn't, it's not like that weird movie about like dogs, reincarnated, where it's like we had to really torture this animal for people to notice that Hollywood is not kind to animals, like no, it's we use these CG creatures that are so realistic and so appealing. It made people think twice about that. That'd be so great. It makes me hope that maybe one day they'll adapt that Grant Morrison, Frank Quitely book We 3 into a movie, which stars oh my god. It's essentially about like 3 animals that were like wrenched from their original lives, a dog, a cat, and a rabbit, and put into like a secret government project and experimented on, and then put into like these like mech suits, and like all they want to do is go home. So and because they're in the suits, they have to be able to communicate, so like they communicate in like the simplistic animal terms. It's really sad and it's really rough. But hey, listen, with CG we can make that happen, and it will be just be that more sad.
But there was a line in it though that I found kind of funny, was that he was like, after I saw it and I was doing it, it was nice when it was with people and I was being mean to people, because I just felt like a ordinary villain. Like, and it's just when you add in the animals,
much worse.
It makes it much worse, but it made me more excited for the film, just because I have been hearing so much more about how serious and kind of more dark Guardians 3 is supposed to be, and how it's going to be a much more serious tone than the humor-filled other movies. So having this kind of villain adding into it, and knowing that they did it, as weird as it is, they played the villain well enough that they made themselves feel like they were a terrible person just for their acting. And that gives me faith that, okay, this is going to be a valuable villain that actually is impactful and not just a story device. Because I feel like we've had some villains where they're really just there to go, hey, we got a villain, but it's about this stuff. Like, this feels more like, oh, wow, we've got a villain.
Yeah, we have somebody we want to see defeated.
Exactly.
Right, as opposed to like, oh, it's Ronan the Accuser, oh no.
Exactly.
I agree with that. Here's some bad news, or at least it was bad news, but I'm happy to see that it's going to be in some way rectified. It's Marvel Comics app is shutting down June 2nd, and they have announced that all comics purchased with the app will be made accessible on the Marvel Unlimited app without the need of a subscription to access these purchases. So it looks like, I know there was a lot of hubbub about that because, of course, Marvel launched this app a long time, quite a while ago, and put a lot of emphasis behind it. They made all those like digital codes available in their comic books if you bought them physically, and they're migrating over to the Marvel Unlimited app, which makes perfect sense to me. Not in terms of like something I would do, but I get why they would do it, and I get why they're like, well, we don't need 2 apps that do the same thing. So I get that. I just think it's really cool that they're actually making it so that if you don't want to pay like a subscription fee to read more than the books you own, you will still have access to the books you bought through the app that also offers subscription fees. I think that's fantastic. And it's a really nice olive branch from a company that I would not expect to meet any reader halfway on.
Right.
And so that's great. But yeah, if you're not familiar, Marvel Limited it's an app. It's like Netflix. You just pay a subscription fee. You get access to all these books. There's a small delay. I think it's 3 months. I know DC dropped it to 1 month. Maybe Marvel met them. I don't recall.
I think there's still 3 months.
Okay. But 3 months between new releases, so, but here's the thing about the 3-month delay. It doesn't make the books any less valuable, or it actually, no, it does. It does make them less valuable. That's the thing about these books. If you wait 3 months, like let's say that you're like, oh my God, I normally buy like 12 books a month, or 24 books a month, and, my expenses have gone up and I can't afford to buy these books. Before you go to piracy, what you could do is wait 3 months. And you could either pay for the subscription fee and get more books, or if you're buying in physical, wait 3 months and go to the back issues bins and get those books for like half price. Now, most local comic book stores aren't going to pay you or aren't going to give you like a discount right off the bat, but trade shows and Comic-Cons, I can't tell you how many times I have seen books that were $6 in a back issues bin for $1.
Mm-hmm.
It's frustrating, but it's one of those things where it's like, as long as you are patient, and I'm not asking you to be patient for a year or for like, forever, but if you're patient, there are ways for you to both, contribute to the comic book industry and read your books.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, all right, cool. I mean, this is more than I ever would have expected Marvel to do. So I'm really proud of them for doing it.
Yeah, especially that they're doing it without the subscription. That was, when I saw that, they were like, yeah, you can get it without the need for a subscription. I was like, I was expecting them to be like, you get all the books you already bought as long as you have your Marvel Unlimited. And I was like, that would be a more Marvel move.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm glad they did this because why not? They already bought the books. Let them have what they bought.
I don't know how they could make that work. It would have to be something that they deliberately changed about the site, which is really cool that they did it because I would not have expected them to do that. So nicely done. Well done, Marvel.
Yeah.
And finally, Shazam #1 reveals that Shazam's potential new superhero name is the Captain, an obvious nod to the original name of Captain Marvel. The new name is given by his adopted family after, quote, a little maritime accident, but appears to be sticking as it's a name that Billy can say out loud without changing forms. This is referenced directly in the issue that dropped today. Shazam #1 from Mark Waid and Dan Mora, by the way, if you're interested in, if you ever were thinking about buying a Captain Marvel comic, you could do worse than getting one written by Mark Waid with art by Dan effing Mora. Definitely check out that issue. I did myself just for this in preparation. I saw Shazam #1. Yep. I was like, okay, fine, I'll read it. So I picked it up and I read it. By the way, all these books that I got ahead of time, I didn't have time to go to the comic book store, but I did get them on Comixology through Amazon, unfortunately. It's frustrating, but you know what? I buy my books. So, man, the Captain, do you dig it or not? It sounds from the description, from the copy here, that you're not wild about the name.
I think it's just very... Whenever people get a new name...
Yeah.
It's always interesting because you've got the directions of simplistic and makes sense, or brand new name, like out of nowhere name that either really works or is absolutely awful. And this felt more like them going, okay, so everyone always talks about how he uses the word Shazam to both change forms as well as his name. And like, even in comics, they're like, okay, well, he has to say it with meaning for it to actually change it. Like, so I'm glad that they're trying to like go around that, as well as also touching on, he used to be Captain Marvel, so we'll just call him the Captain. But the Captain doesn't make me think superhero. The Captain, when I hear that, I think like, oh, this is a small town. There's this one old guy that everyone in town calls him the Captain. And like, that's what I picture. And so I'm hesitant, but we'll see how they use it.
Well, let me tell you something. Captain America's name used to be the Captain. For like a very small period of time, he was disenfranchised with America, dropped the America part, changed his suit to look like what would become the U.S. agent suit, and went by the Captain. So it's funny how, so Captain Marvel was what Shazam's name was. Marvel was like, we're going to copyright it, and we're going to call Marvel that. And then DC was like, well, then we're going to make our guy the Captain. And then Marvel could go, we already have that.
Mm-hmm.
We have a guy called the Captain already. Like, it is a moniker that Captain America took on. But every time I hear the Captain, I think of when Steve Rogers was the Captain. And I'm kind of like, the Captain of what?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Now, Captain Marvel is just the name they pulled out of a hat back during that time at like Fawcett Comics. So I could appreciate that, while Captain Marvel is arbitrarily named, the problem wasn't the Captain portion, so we'll call him Captain.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they need to go further. I think that the Captain doesn't work because he's not nautical based. He doesn't seem to have some kind of military rank. the captain part was erroneous from the start. He's a superhero, Superman. There's nothing denominational about it. He's a Superman. That's it. His suit is a strong man idea. So you could go from there. But if you wanna stick with Captain, you could go with something like I was actually trying to just brainstorming it, just going okay, well, Captain what? Right? If you're gonna, his name is Captain Marvel. We went by Shazam forever, and it was always awkward because his name is Shazam, and it's what the gods know when he says my name's Shazam, it doesn't automatically trigger the magic word, but it's a magic word. I don't know. So it was always dicey. Plus, I don't know. Call him the thing he says, nah. But if you want to go with Captain, call him Captain something. But what's associated with Captain Marvel? He's got all the gods. It can't be Captain God. That's too self-aggrandizing.
That's so full of yourself.
Exactly.
I'm Captain God.
Captain God, right? And it's well, Captain Gods. No, can't do that. You can't pick one of the gods or the characters that is that's the makeup for Shazam, the acronym.
Okay, I was not aware, or at
Shazam
least
is
had
an
forgotten, that Shazam stood for. And for those of you listening and watching, if you weren't aware, Shazam stands for Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury. Yeah. I was not aware that was the reason it was called
Shazam.
That. And
it's
and it
Shazam
was one of those ones where I looked at it and I'm like, how did I not know this? I knew of the different powers and the names of the gods, and I never just put two and two together.
Right? No, I'm sure they started with Shazam and then went, why does he call it Shazam? And then probably they went, oh, we could make him, he's the powers of the gods. But you can't make it one of those. I was thinking, well, what about the Rock of Eternity? You could go with Captain Eternity.
That's not
terrible. Not bad. And the only other Captain Eternity that exists was created in a book called Tom Strong, which was made through Wildstorm, which is owned by DC Comics. So they already own the name.
There you go.
So you can go with Captain Eternity. Because Captain Thunder, a little silly. Plus, I think there's Boy Thunder, who is also a character that they whipped up during World's Finest. Plus Thunder.
There's Johnny Thunder, the kid with the genie in a pen
with the genie,
something.
Which again, what does Thunder have to do with a genie? I mean, I don't know. It's more like It's more like Johnny Magic, but
right. I will say though, I am wondering, because of the way that this comic ends in a negative tone for Shazam or the Captain, I'm wondering if they went with such a simplistic name that they also even say in this that it's it was Mary and Freddie making fun of me for a maritime thing that had
fell off a boat or something.
Exactly. I'm wondering if this is going to go into a redemption arc for Shazam, and then we'll end with a new name and a new kind of look for him. I'm wondering if this is going to be almost a reinvention of the character to basically do what they're doing with John Kent a little bit of separating it from what it was, because we no longer have the Shazam family. He can't share the powers. He's at the Rock of Eternity. We've got weird things going on there, and it ends with him kind of going a little crazy. So I wonder if this will lead into some sort of rebranding for himself, because he even he's got a YouTube channel or something where he's I'm the captain. And it's I wonder if they'll use that to kind of reinvent the character, because the most recent movies sure as heck did not do that character any favors.
I like those movies aren't terrible. I think they're fine.
Did you see the newest one? I haven't seen it.
I did. Yeah, I saw Fury of the Gods. It's cute. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that movie. It's just, it's just if you're looking at it from the perspective of how does this fit into everything, don't. Especially because it tries. So don't. They could have just really focused. But also, the part of the joy and fun of those movies is how he is set against the backdrop of the DC universe as a whole.
Right.
But yeah, I like those two movies. They're fine.
Okay.
There's nothing. I think there's nothing really wrong with those.
I enjoyed the first one a lot. The second one.
The second one, they went, oh, Freddy's the main character. Let's just focus on Freddy then.
Oh, did they?
Which is too bad because I think that everybody who plays all the kids are great. Like Billy's good, Freddy's great, and the rest of them are fantastic. Like I really like the kid actors are great, and they're all growing up like very fast, so they'll all be titans of their field before you know it. But they all do like a lot of good work with very little. That I'm you know me, I'm always like, oh, too many superfluous characters. Like the Shazam family, you're having a hard time selling one of these guys. You got what, like all of them? Yikes. I mean, Mary Marvel notwithstanding, like the rest of them, like, oh, they're fast. Are they fast as the Flash? Because there's 10 of those.
Which they also, I feel, amped up his powers in this issue.
Yeah.
Did you because loved dinosaurs from space, don't get me wrong,
right.
But the fact that they're falling and he creates a net before it lands because catching it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah,
I feel like they kind of amped him up a bit. So I'm excited to see what comes out of this Dawn of DC Shazam comic because the fact that he is one of their starting comics,
yes,
I feel means they are going to be putting some effort into the character again finally and really trying to putting him at the front, make him beloved again, hopefully.
Right. I've never cared about Captain Marvel, so if this did anything to make me find him interesting or exciting, then they did it. And I hope it's good. Like I hope it continues to be fresh. I hope people find what they're looking for from here, because it's a not inconsiderable effort. Like they gave Mark Waid the job. Dan Moore is drawing it. Like there is not, they're not like, oh, whatever with this. Like, oh, we have to, or we feel obligated to. This is like, we're making an effort to make Shazam, Captain Marvel, a character. Boom. Like, that's great. Good for them.
Yeah, definitely. So.
Shazam.
Well, I feel like that is a good place for us to wind down here. I was not expecting this to go for a full hour, but hey, you know
we got one, baby.
We are just that good at podcasting, folks.
10 years, I should hope so.
Right. So if you did enjoy this show, please be sure to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon, get the notifications, leave a review wherever you see this, all of that good stuff. Also, go to our sponsors, Into the AM, use code ABSOLUTELY, GamerSupps, use code COMICS. Save money when you buy stuff there, get some great stuff. That is Sal, I am Dan, and we will catch you all next time.